Thank you, folks, for this very brave film. I want to welcome to lead the conversation. Sorry, I'm waiting for the carts. Thank you, folks. I'd like to welcome to moderate the conversation our good friend, talented actress and artist and performer, Alexandria Wailes. Thank you, Alexandria. And she'll be in conversation. We have here the director of the film, Monihan, and the producer of the film, Sheena Matheiken. Thank you both for being here. I understand there are others if you'd like to welcome them.
And two of the actors, and everybody did many roles on this project since we didn't have a budget. So we have Ronnie. Do you want to come down? And Ronnie Meijer. And TOC, who played one of the bad guys, but he's actually a nice guy. He's just performing. So, oh, we can sit. You can sit over. Yeah. And remember, answer.
Hi, welcome. And I'm sorry, that last gentleman who just got here, I didn't get your name, please?
TOC. Oh, you can answer.
TOC.
Yeah.
And then next to TOC is? Ronnie. And we have Sheena and Max and myself. So thank you all for being here, and I really want to thank you so much for your film, and thank you ReelAbilities and Alexis and Isaac and the interpreters, and I think we'll dive into our conversation. So I had questions about how this film was created. What was the inspiration? What was the initial reason to tell the story? Because human trafficking, sex trafficking is an ongoing issue throughout the world. It certainly here as well. So in this particular story, it's based on actual events. At the end, you'd stated that. So you saw it in the news, and did you just want to draw the story out, or can you tell us more about the impetus?
Well, even before it was on the news, we, as New Yorkers, we saw it, every day riding the trains. We saw the people passing the cards out every day riding the trains. And, for me, it used to bother me the way that most people would just ignore the people. And I had many people that I knew that would tell me, like, oh, they're just faking it, or, it's just a scam or something, and just be very dismissive. And because it was they were dismissive, and I knew there was more to the story, I just had a sense that there had to be more to the story, it used to really bother me. In the same way that if somebody's collecting cans out of the garbage, and then you have people say, oh, those people are being lazy, they need to get a real job. That's the hardest job in the world, to go and do that in the hot sun every day and collect cans. So the same sort of feeling, it used to bother me when I'd hear people talk that way. And then to find out that it really was a trafficking ring, when I did read the story in the news and, found out that it really was this horrific thing, I really wanted to go back and yell at all the people that had ever said, like, oh, they were faking it. But I knew that wasn't very productive. It would be more productive to try to do something a little bit more, long-lasting and creative.
So then I'm wondering, were there any organizations out there that provided assistance or a safe haven? Because since you've shown this film, certainly I'm wondering if you have affiliated with any organizations that provide support for victims of human trafficking.
We haven't. This is actually the first time we're showing the film in New York. So you're one of our first audiences in New York City, and which is very special. And we hope that this will start a real conversation in New York. The film has shown all over the world, actually, in many festivals, but we haven't yet had any real traction in New York yet. So, and we do finally have a distributor, so the film should be in theaters sometime this spring or summer. So we're hoping that that'll again initiate some conversation. And last night we met some wonderful people also working with the community through ReelAbilities, and we're starting some conversations with them. And yeah.
And we also spoke to one of the foremost experts on modern-day slavery, and he's put us in touch with the people that were actually instrumental in helping the victims of this case, the people that had to suffer through this case, because originally they wanted to just send everybody back to Mexico and Guatemala. And a lot of the people wanted to stay. They said, we came for language school, we wanted to stay for language school. So they really had to fight. And one of the women that was instrumental in helping their legal battle, we've been introduced to her, and hopefully she'll get involved, and it will find ways to go and reach the people that went through the situation.
So this is an issue throughout the world, modern-day slavery. So what gave you the decision how to frame it from the perspective of a person from Guatemala?
Well, that's where the people, it wasn't so much Guatemala, it was the region of northern Guatemala, southern Mexico, the sort of Chiapas region. And that's where a lot of the trafficking happened. There is, for certain reasons, there are large population of people that are deaf there. So the traffickers were targeting this region, and people from different villages and stuff. But they were going down there and trying to, target this region. So it wasn't like we just picked it off the map. We were doing it because it was based on the actual facts, and
And I was also wanting to wonder, was anyone involved in the film deaf? Were all of the people who were trapped in the situation, and we were supposed to understand that they were all deaf, or were they from various different backgrounds? Could you explain more of that to us?
Yeah, some of the actors in our group, there were a few that were deaf, and there were also some that were hearing, and the reason why there wasn't so much communication between them is the traffickers primarily targeted people that didn't have language skills, and typically only knew a rudimentary home sign, or just a very minimal home sign, and that's why they were so desperate to and susceptible to this idea of going to language school. It's a poor region, and they don't have that many resources for for the deaf population there. So then when these people that looked like missionaries, like Christian missionaries going to help, the families were even more willing to go and say, like, okay, this may be a good thing for our relative, or our children, or our siblings, or whatever.
Did you want to add comments here, gentlemen?
Well, Ronnie, he's from Guatemala. He can tell you it's it can sometimes be a dangerous place, and so when they told the people, like, if you do anything wrong, we're going to harm your family back home. When they explained that to them, they really believed it, because this is a region where there is a lot of violence, and where it has been a war-torn region. So it's not it's not something that was far-fetched. It was something that was very believable to these people, and that again made them more easy to exploit. Right?
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and sorry, I mint leaves. Actually, this is the first time I see the whole film.
Yeah, this is the first time he watched.
I'm a little bit, actually impressed. Really good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And yeah, we all try to do and put a little bit of our good and bad experience, especially back in Guatemala. Thank you. And yeah, we come from the third world country, as you know, like even in our family, they like teach us how to say or be obedient, like listen to your teacher, listen to your doctor, listen to your lawyer. So imagine these people that they have no skills to talk, they have no skills to defend themselves. And well, I was in that time I was managing a restaurant, and well, that's the way we meet Monihan, and one of the actors, what's his name again? Geneva. And when he talked to me about the film, I was like, if there is anything I can do for free. You don't have to pay me. And
well, we became friends.
Yeah, well, actually, we're kind of friends. And
so you mentioned that there was no budget for this film. No, so you got money from friends, you helped your friends, but where'd you get the equipment from?
No, there was no money from friends. It was, everybody was just willing to work for free. But what happened was there was an advertising campaign or a marketing campaign by a car company called Scion, and they wanted to do all these like little events where they were supporting, you know, youth culture. And I mean, not any of us are really youth, but for some reason they thought we were young enough. Oh yeah, okay, TOC is young enough, but they.
So when was this?
This was 2007.
And was it a one-time thing? It was 2007.
Yeah, they had a film festival for 10 young filmmakers, and each person had to make a 10-minute long film, and then they would give you a camera, and they would fly you to wherever you wanted to shoot. And that's how we got the free tickets to go and shoot in Central America. And then when we came back, we told them, well, we have 10 minutes, but we'll show you that, but we want to make a longer movie. And then, you know, if we do the longer movie, is it all right if we keep it as our own movie? And they're like, oh, sure, no problem. You can. We just need to show it once for our marketing purposes or whatever. And yeah.
And how long did the filming last?
1 year.
1 year. So did you often fly back and forth to Central America,
no,
or was it
just once? That we couldn't afford it. I was
wondering about that.
No, we got the free tickets to go there. We did that one time.
Well, I guess I keep hitting my mic wrong, maybe. I guess the idea was that because we only had a few scenes to shoot in Guatemala, that we would make that the 10-minute short that we hand off, and that would sort of bring a certain level of production quality to the overall film, and the rest, it was all shot in New York, and we all live in New York, so, you know, we didn't get permits, we didn't do anything, we just sort of, you know, shot it all guerrilla style in New York City with all of our friends and non-actors, and then once we were done with that, the editing is what took a very long time, because again we were working with friends and editing ourselves, and yeah, 5 years later we had a film. And then it started getting into festivals, and so it's been a very, very long run. And again, it's the nature of when you self-finance. Well, no financing in this case, but self-produce a film, and you have to sort of often put it aside for a while, you know, while you're working on other things, come back to it. So it's been like a labor of love for us for many years, and I got involved midway through the project, and finally we finished, I guess, in like 2013, and then now it's 2016, and it's the first time it's just been shown in New York, so.
I've also done quite a few labors of love such as this, so I completely understand where you're coming from. And one of the things I very much appreciated about the film is the black and white nature of it, because I think it suggests a more of a focus on the emotional journey of the character. And when she's in flashback to her home in Guatemala, the sights, the lushness of the colors was just really lovely juxtaposition to the scenes of New York. I wonder what kinds of cameras did you use, because that really looked almost like stop motion animation, where the turn of the head or a movement of the arm. So I was wondering, how did you create that? What technology did you use?
It really wasn't technology. It was It was a cheap camera. There wasn't a fancy camera. It was a Panasonic HVX 200. People won't even touch those things anymore now with the fancy cameras that you can get for cheap at B&H. Like, this camera is already outdated, but the stop motion aspect of it. Well, first the colorful aspect. I mean, that's really how Guatemala looks. You know, it's the most colorful, beautiful place. The skies are so blue and the greens are so green that's just, we couldn't put that into black and white. It didn't make sense to have that be black and white. But New York can be a very gray, you know, black and white city. So it made sense to make that distinction. And like you said, if you have too much color and too much information, it detracts from the emotional journey of the character Olga. But I think the way it looked sort of stop motion, we were sort of doing a slight nod to the classic cinema and the classic silent cinema of, like, Charlie Chaplin.
That's what I felt.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about that.
And the whole trick.
I'm happy I wasn't mistaken.
No, we did that on purpose because there's a poetry to that kind of style, and it makes it a little bit more magical. Mm-hmm. And we wanted her to move in that kind of Charlie Chaplin-esque kind of way. So the only trick is we sped the film up from 24 frames per second to 19 frames per second, because that's what Charlie Chaplin used to do. So we just cheated and did what Charlie Chaplin did. But it wasn't a technical thing. It's it's the most simple thing that you can do.
Thanks for revealing that secret. And I'd like to turn it over to our audience. I imagine you have some questions you'd like to ask. So, in summary, the story about this film, about those actors, were they professional actors or real people? And I was wondering, secondly, the person who did the lead role of the deaf character, how did you end up finding a hearing actor to play the deaf role? Because I don't understand how that decision was made. And I was just a little concerned about authenticity, so I wanted to ask about that.
So the first part of the question was, I'm trying to remember the first part. The casting. Okay. Nobody was an actor because we didn't have any money. Like, everybody was a friend. It was only friends that were in the movie, except the people that were on the train, and they didn't have any idea they were in a movie. They just were riding on the train, and we happened to be filming.
All of them?
None of them.
Even
only the guy at the very end that gives her the $1 at the very end, and then
out of his pocket, because he had a real close-up shot.
Yeah. He's the only one, and he's a guy from my neighborhood, and he's a friend, and he has the best smile in the world. So we asked him if he would be the guy at the end. But and yeah, that was the only person. The other people had no idea that they were even in a movie. And typically, after we filmed the scene, we would go and try to give the money back to them. And they would always say, "Oh, no, she needs the money more than us. It's okay."
That was part of the budget.
Yeah. No, it's
reverse budget.
No, but the fact of the matter is, Geneva was so, we can't keep this money. It's not fair. We have to give it to somebody else. So she would always give it to, like, somebody like homeless or something, because she was very worried about her own karma. She didn't want to keep the money, and so she was very strict about that. So she kept it and gave it to somebody else. And then the question, how I found the actors, because it is an important question. Why did I choose somebody who's hearing and not choose somebody who is deaf for the role, especially given that there's not that many movies with deaf people, so there should be more roles given to actual deaf actors. And the truth is, I was only using friends. We were only using people that we knew, and I was actually thinking about using my have a friend, Ricky, who has a sister who's deaf, and I was thinking about using her. And I had also met Geneva, whose mother was from the exact region where the people were from. That had this happen to them. She actually came from one of the villages that had some of the people come from. So I was thinking, like, okay, do I try to use Ricky's sister, who I don't know very well, who's not Latina, or do I use Geneva, who is from this region, who I know a bit better? And I really just had to weigh it. And I just, at the end of the day, I just thought that Geneva embodied the character. So I was like, do I be more authentic with the fact that the person's from the region and not deaf, or do I be more, choose Ricky's sister, who looks like she's from Sweden, but isn't from Guatemala? So it was one of those things. And if we had a real budget, we probably would have done a more extensive casting in trying to find more people. But I don't want to try to make it sound like excuses, but it's a very important question, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
And I completely understand. Thank you for your explanation. I appreciate that. So, and I know that there are many deaf actors out there who would be willing to volunteer for a project if they believed in it. I'm certain they would do it. Yeah. So just for going forward, that's something to be mindful of. And I thought, I've certainly been in the position where I have volunteered many times for short film, experimental films, and we deaf actors are also trying to build up our resume as well.
Yeah, of course.
And what she's saying is that you had people volunteer for being in your film, and of course you want to have somebody who matches your design concept. So the question is matching the concept. So just something to think about for the future also.
Yes, of
and
course.
From my perspective, on the whole, I thought it was tremendously touching and difficult to go through. I became anxious for the character. As a deaf person, I can certainly relate. But I did notice that there were moments where it looked like she could hear, and there were things to me that I felt were not authentic. And like the way she was using the phone at the very end. And this is Alexandria saying I would like to tag team on that. The issue about the muffled music. Watching it, and I was wondering how you made the determination of the amount of muffling, because I certainly can't hear with my hearing aid off, I've got no hearing, so I was just wondering what kind of research you did, what led to your determination of levels for ambient sound. Did you want it to be loud? Did you want it to be quiet? And I also want to mention about the scene with the phone when she was talking on the where she looked like she was talking on the phone. In that dream sequence, it seemed to me to be a part of a dream sequence, so it could have just been a reflection of her desire to communicate. But I absolutely understand your question, Malini saying. So if a person has limited education, they wouldn't necessarily understand the concept of hearing on the phone, the experience of hearing sound. So when I watched that moment, I definitely was puzzled, and it didn't ring true at that moment. So, but it's just something that I'm offering to you. So great observation. Thank you very much. I want to think that I grew up in a hearing family, and I certainly saw people talk on the phone. And I have to confess that they would give me a toy phone, and I would mimic the behavior of the people around me. So that was my reaction to her. I thought it was a mimicking behavior. So it's part of like that strange dream sequence. But anyway, let's come back to the choices for the sound, the scoring, the sound. How did you make those determinations?
Okay, and it's difficult because we have captioning, and the captioning says, music or rumble or whatever. And the truth is that we were creating a sound design where it's not about necessarily the audio. It's more about the vibrations, and it was more about the stuff that she could feel on like a bass level or the vibratory stuff from the subways. It wasn't supposed to be something where it's like, oh, she can hear this. It was more like what she can feel, and to give an audience maybe what that feeling, because it's very much like a rumble, not like an actual something that you hear. That was the idea behind it. It's really difficult because you're trying to get, on the one hand, be authentic, to the deaf experience, or the multitude of deaf experiences. And on the other hand, you want to try to bring a hearing audience into the experience too, and get them to think about it in a new way. So it's a tricky thing. And then the dream sequence was completely different. That was like the talking on the phone was, like you said, it was her imagining, like, maybe if I wasn't in this situation, which is a very controversial thing to show, because it's not saying that, it's not saying one way of living is different or better or worse than another way. It's just what she was imagining as a teenager, going through this horrible experience and just wondering what it would be like if she was home and in some other kind of situation. And so it's not, we also wanted to show that was alienating too. So.
And then my question is, your friend Ricky's sister, who was deaf, did you contact her about sound levels for this film? Did you ask her? Yeah,
well, I mean, it's like, is it decibel levels or whatever? But we did a lot of research too. Our sound guy said, like, it's sort of like, I guess a lot of people from the hearing world don't realize that people go to clubs and dance when they're deaf, and they can feel all that stuff. And just like learning all that stuff and knowing that that's a part of the experience, we wanted to show that it's like, in ways, like, if certain things aren't a part of your life, you're even more tuned in to the way the world works. And for a hearing audience, they maybe don't think about these things, but we wanted to show that somehow. And, like, when she seems like she's turning, and it's because the wind of the train is coming. It wasn't supposed to be the sound of the train coming. It was supposed to be, like, other perceptory things that are important to show that this person has a full understanding of what's going on around her.
All right, an audience question?
Oh, thank you. Two parts. First of all, you did say that there were some deaf people. How many were there?
It's probably like 4 or 5 of the people that were.
4 was 5.
It was probably 5. It was definitely 5. But some of the people were in there a very short amount of time, and.
Okay. And well, I understand on the one hand that you were trying to show a realistic situation of what's going on in society, but symbolistically, when I think of the way you're showing hearing impaired people, I think it's more of, look at me, pity me, they're making me do this, instead of making a movie that would, if you're going to make a movie where you really want to show hearing impaired people and the troubles that they're having, then actually bring in hearing impaired people, but don't show a topic where hearing impaired people, I look at those people on the subway, I don't care who they are, that they're making a mockery of themselves. So I'm sitting here watching this movie, thinking of the title, but I'm really puzzled as to why this movie, because to me it looks more like not a realistic thing, but more of a pity me kind of thing.
Pitying the people that went through this experience, or pitying well, I just want to make sure I understand. I think it's a fair comment. We're first-time filmmakers, and
not pitying the people, pitying. It could be any kind of a person coming from another country that could be doing that. They could be passing out things and saying, "Please, I need money." But to take the hearing impaired population, where we have issues as it is,
I think the film was a critique of people who did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was done.
Yeah,
it is facts. It was definitely done, because I've seen it myself. So.
We have time for one more question over here. 2 more.
Oh.
Yeah, it really happened.
You sort of left me hanging at the end of the film.
Yes.
So what happened to the young lady, and what happened to the other people involved there?
Well, what happened?
I didn't read the news article.
So what happened in real life is they ended up finding the family that was running the crime ring, and they ended up sending these people to jail for a number of years. And they found, 3 different houses with 40 people to a basement that were being held there and forced to do this. And they estimated that they made, in the millions of dollars over the years that they were running this scam. For me, as the filmmaker and the storyteller, I didn't want to give that information, because I think that as an audience, it's important for us to not absolve ourselves of the issue, and say like, oh, well, I'm glad they took care of that. Now I can go and, go to dinner. And for me, it's more important that it hurts at the end and it makes the conversation continue, because this kind of stuff still goes on. We live in a world that's becoming more and more where we're losing our humanity every day. We're so caught up with our own issues and our own things that are going on, and especially as the economics get worse, we have like half the country, following a fascist now. I mean, it's getting really bad, and I don't want people to feel absolved. I want the conversation to keep going on so we can really examine our humanity and our empathy. And I think it's important to face up to these hard things and really discuss it and think about what really matters. So that's why I didn't want to end with a nice bow on the top like typical Hollywood movies. I wanted it to hit hard at the end so people would continue to talk about it. So we're having a conversation now, but a lot of the time we're not going to be there, so it's hopefully the audience will have that conversation and go and look and question their own, values and what really matters. I mean, that's the goal.
I'm sorry, it's very important also that the audience over here need to know that it was based in a true history that happens, and it is happening right now, and it's going to continue happening. I don't know for how long time. It is right now. If you're going to go, take the train, and you're going to see somebody asking for money. Not specifically because it's deaf or it's mute, because they need it. It's something like they need to survive.
We're going to take 2 more.
Yes.
Is there an anxious question over here?
Alexandria speaking.
Sorry.
Wait. That is what I felt at the end of this film. I felt that this is an issue that is ongoing. There is no simple answer here. So I feel that it was a very appropriate, open-ended question to leave to the audience, actually, that we should not feel comfortable. We should feel upset. These things we should be aware of. I know you've been raising your hand. So in the film, yes, they had the sound and she was feeling vibrations, and there would also be lights. I saw that. Deaf people can be sensitive to lights and lighting, and that would have been a nice part to add into the film.
Yeah, there was, this is because we're first-time filmmakers maybe, and not so good yet, but there was a part where she was in the basement, and in the middle of the night, one of the bad guys was holding down one of the other people that was like having a panic attack, and the other bad guy was giving her a shot. And it was just because the lights turned on, and that, it sort of woke her up, and then she noticed what was going on. And we were trying to do this, like show that the sensitivity to light and the sensory is, heightened for our character. And we were trying to show that, but, maybe it doesn't come across. But we were trying to do little hints towards this because it is important, and that's what makes makes the story better. And
there were also like a couple of motifs that kept happening, like the light from right above where she slept. There was light streaming in through one of the
crate
windows, and a spider was hanging around. She would always cover her head with a pillow before going to bed because of that light hitting her.
Yeah, the light
strongly.
Yes, I think that what she's referring to is deaf eyes are very sensitive on the subway, for example, when all of the lighting that's up on the subways, the different kinds of lighting, most people don't notice all that. I think deaf eyes are very sensitive to the nuances that are. I feel what you've done is more filmatic. You know, you've been looking at the human experience, the human condition. And I hope that you plan to continue that. Their bios are online. You can see that they're really supporting global awareness of populations around the world. I hope that do you plan to do some more films?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have 2 films in the works right now, one that we've already shot and we're editing, and another one in pre-production that we're hoping to shoot. Both sort of deal with different types of issues, but significant universal conversations that need to be had, we think.
We're going to have one more question from the audience. Is that okay?
I think there's 2. I mean, we're fine with 2 more. If you guys, we maybe have to go home.
Security's going to kick us out
Yeah.
soon.
And also, we can talk outside too. So you know.
Okay, a few questions.
Yeah.
Can we take it down to one?
Talking about there's a signer
there's
over here
a signer who's
about
asked.
human trafficking. Go back.
Can we get
Oh,
a
I'm
question from
sorry.
someone who hasn't asked a question yet? Just one last question here.
Oh, just a brief comment to them. I was reading in the bios about a parent's nightmare. A parent's nightmare here in America, speaking, is to find that 66% of human trafficking happens right here in this country, and it's a huge number. So I just wanted to add that to the movie that you've made. It's really important to know what happens right here at home.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm finally on. I happen to be an audiologist, which has not much to do with the question. As people involved in this now, I did see these people years ago on the subway and didn't know what to think. What if I was in a situation where I had a question about something like this and I thought something was wrong? What would I be able to do? Do you have suggestions from your experience? And the other comment I wanted to make is there's the sound. When I listened to the film and heard the sound, my understanding as an audiologist is that some individuals who are deaf can hear just that much sound. But it wouldn't be illegitimate to consider someone deaf who can hear that much sound that you showed in the film, and they would basically have as much problem as anyone else, especially if they were from a developing nation where they had no education. So it was perfectly fine to my ears and my vision. But what would be your suggestions? How I had no clue when these people were doing this, and I would.
Well, none of us did. First, thank you for the second part, because that's what we were trying to get at. I mean, obviously there's different ranges of what people can and cannot hear, so.
Perfectly like many people I have met.
Okay.
And he really was not hearing of any speech or any communication, whatever, but there was some sound.
I would like to just ask for some clarification. When you say these people, are you talking about the people from third world countries or Americans or people in general when you said these people?
No, just in general. In general.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
It's more difficult. I think there are people in many third world countries, and it's a completely different situation. And in the Soviet Union years ago, I met 2 children who were signing as an audiologist and speech pathologist. These 2 children were signing in a museum, and myself and the other speech pathologist with me knew that had they had hearing aids available, they would have had verbal communication. We knew from the level of their interaction with us. So where you are in the world depends on. It changes the situation, but I meant in general.
But, okay.
I think first and foremost, everything is about education. When people are not provided with education, it has nothing to do with their sense of hearing. It has everything to do with education that helps us survive in whatever world or life we are, whatever sense we have, low vision, hard of hearing, deaf, blind. I think it's a great comment on what we see and feel, that there are resources that can help enhance somebody's abilities, but there's a diversity out there, and it's hard to predict what might work for any particular person. I can speak for myself. My experience is not the same as another person's experience in this room. I've had a lot of education. I've had access to higher education, but I understand your comments, and I understand we're running out of time, so maybe we just need one or more questions, one or two questions.
I'll answer your question later about what you could do in those situations.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's a great note to bring to the audience, and maybe to close it with is what could you do in this situation? What's the call to action?
The thing is, you know, we were all faced with this situation as New Yorkers. Anybody who rode the trains at that time was faced with this situation, and you know, the question isn't, you know, what you do, you know, to go and try to stop the whole situation. Maybe we can't stop the situation, but what we can do is recognize people's humanity. Typically, when we feel like we can't do anything, we just close off and we try to block it out or try not to think about it, but then we become complicit in it and we become complacent with the problems. And for me, the more important thing to do is try to recognize what's going on, and then maybe if there is a little opening to help, then you try to help. That maybe you see something where you can step in and do something, but if we just block it out, like most of us do when we ride the trains, and most of us do in our lives because we don't want to be bothered by other people's problems, then we're losing our own humanity. And you know, to me, that's the most important thing. Just remember each other's humanity. Try to look into other people's lives that might be different from yours, and realize that they're not that different from yours. And what would you want in that situation? You know, think about it. Because most of us, we try not to think about it. The second that we start thinking about it, then we'll find ways to act. And, you know, my way was, you know, always try to argue with my friends that said that it was a big, you know, that these people were faking it or something. And then what did I do after that? Well, I found out that it wasn't, you know, these people weren't faking it. They were actually in a really bad situation. And you know, I decided to make a movie about it. Maybe somebody else is a writer. Maybe somebody else, like the person that ended up helping them get caught, he just realized the guy looked a lot like him because he was from the same part of southern Mexico, and he's like, that guy looks too much like me. And he followed him and watched where he went at night to go back to this house, and he said, it's too strange. There's all these people going in this house. And so he went to the police and said, I think this guy's in trouble. You have to go there. The police didn't want to hear it. They were like, you don't know what's going on. We can't just go and bother people's houses. And he was like, no, you don't understand. There's something going on. This guy looks like he comes from where I'm from. He won't speak. He seems very afraid. You have to come. And he kept bothering the police until they went there, and they ended up busting this family that was running this ring. So, you know, there's a million things we can do. We might not all be, you know, Spider-Man and solve the problems, but as long as we remember each other's humanity, that's the first step, and I think that's what the most important side of it is.
That's a fantastic ending comment. You have ended it perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you to Alexandria, of course. Thank you to our wonderful filmmakers. You handled these questions fantastically.
Thank you. And we can keep talking outside.
And please
too.
do keep talking.